before I come to the last question, I want to hear your commentary on the future of education. It seems like the future is happening right now. In the last 2 months of kids staying at home, everything is virtual. Do you see this as a future?
If you're talking about how it is right now when everything is virtual, whether that's the future, no. I think the future will have to be a combination of offline and online engagement. I think that the model of school will forever be there because there is a value of, socializing as well as learning through the teacher. But I feel like the infrastructure will need to change. So for example, how do you accommodate, a variance of students learning, whether it's personalization of learning through different pacing, but how can that also be integrated with more real world components or like external mentors, for example. So I think that the content of what we're learning in school needs to drastically change. The way that we go to school needs to change, whether it is a combination of offline and online will need to change. And then also the teacher's role will also change, that it needs to be more of a facilitator role rather than like an instructor role. So these are my visions of the future of education, but whether schools can really start adopting to that, I think that's going to take a little bit of time. But we're really hoping that at Own Academy, we can help lead that conversation and really help transform slowly what this module is like.
So it's more than just aesthetic.
Yes, I think the whole infrastructure needs to be changed. But I would say it's hard to change something existing. It's probably easier to adopt to a newer model, and that's where Own Academy stands. And how can we help engineer a new ecosystem of learning that schools can plug into, and that can also become a standalone.
And you are not a big fan of the traditional education model.
I'd say there's definitely merits in the traditional education model. I mean, I think I like parts of it, but I think the way that it teaches, where, when you can find any information online anymore, right, already, right? Like you can already, like anything is as accessible as a fingertip. Like that, and understanding or knowing as much information as you can is no longer what's going to set you apart. What's going to set you apart is how do you connect the dots? How do you think creatively, and how do you become more entrepreneurial? And those things are what schools do not teach in the traditional model. So that's what I'm saying. We need to rechange the gear in order to prepare our students for the world after COVID, is because we are going to be in more ambiguity. We are going to be in these things, and we cannot just teach in such a structured format where students become so adopted to that, so they need to adapt to a more fluid, changing environment.
Can you give me an example of what Own Academy does that's so revolutionary?
Well, I would say that Own Academy, what we're doing is not anything completely new, right? Like I would be lying if I say that we're doing everything brand new and nobody else is doing that. But I think what we're doing differently is how are we seeing the learning space when connecting classroom to industries? And how are we focusing on working with schools and then working with professionals? Because there are a lot of programs that are, say, offering as an after-school activity, and in that case, they may work with school, but they may work more individually with students, right? And I think what we do well at Own Academy is that we have a real-world learning mentality, that students should be learning more about the future trends, about the future skills, and about exposing them to all these new ideas. Because in schools, we're exposed to very limited ideas that are not future driven. But at Own Academy, we're very future driven and focusing on what are on trends. And second of all is the teachers that we find are all professionals. So in schools, you may not always have a professional as a teacher. Some of them may have in the more resource driven school, but in Own Academy, focus on that. So that's where we bring the future to students. And lastly is the environment of where we're learning is always outside the four-wall classroom. Some of them are hybrid because of the resources that we have to manage with, but most of the time we try to bring students into the actual workspace so they really get a taste of it. So I think what Own Academy does well is really on the exposure. How are we exposing students to the breadth of opportunities? Because frankly, you never know that you can do something until you realize that that is something you can do. Yep, and then the second of all is the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And second of all is experience. You never know whether you really want to do something or whether you really like it until you experience it. And so that's why we offer experiences where we design with our professionals so that students get a taste of it. So it's like, you know, we know that in the future, students in this generation are going to probably graduate or not graduate. They're going to retire about like with 10 to 15 jobs. So with that in mind, that means students are going to be transitioning a lot more and they need to really learn different skills. So through our program, we're very focused on teaching these skills that are more creative, entrepreneurship, and innovation driven. And I think that's where things are different from the traditional model.
This is so exciting. Can I, as a student from Brunei, during my holiday, come over to attend your school?
Yes, absolutely. Maybe for this summer, it'll be a little bit hard because we have to do things more. I mean, they can't physically come, but they can join us online. So we're also moving into more of an online model. We are organizing like an online career fair, as well as we're doing an online competition called Real World Challenge. So these are all opportunities that students can participate from around the world. And that's where we want to offer a connection and a community for students. And when it comes to the offline experiences, that's when this summer is probably going to be a little bit challenging, but for next summer, definitely, for different holiday programs, definitely. And we're also, our goal is to create like a marketplace for any career related opportunities that students can tap into. So the sky is our limit and we can definitely open that up for different students.
Let's talk about your online competition. You know, there's something that's nearer to home that we can all participate, isn't it?
Yes,
so
definitely.
What do you have in store?
So this is, yes. So we're launching a real world challenge series where we want to design a real problem with a company or with communities. So the goal is to be able to create this as a series so that every month or every quarter of the month that we can invite a different company to create this challenge. And this is very focused for students from high school to university. And we're launching our first one with COVID-19 being the topic. And our goal is to be able to understand what students think of the future and what is their vision for the future. Because at the moment, we hear from a lot of professionals and politicians and scientists that talks about what their vision of the future is and what's going to happen. But we're talking about our future is going to be driven by the future leaders. And these future leaders are still in school right now. So it'll be amazing to hear what students have to say and what students have to think and what students' solutions are for the future. So in this first challenge, we call it Outbreak What's Next, which is asking students to engage in 3 tracks. 1, education. What is your thinking about the future of education? 2 is the environment. How can we reduce climate change? How can we reduce food waste? Number 3 is the economy. What kind of businesses would you want to start now? And what do you want businesses to do in the future to prepare for this new world? So students can submit their problem statement, their opportunity, and their solution. And that's what we want to encourage students to participate.
Amazing. Now, aside from that, what's next from Natalie Chan or Own Academy?
Oh, in the most immediate terms, in May, we're running a 230 student program from students in Beijing, Singapore, and Seoul. So we're actually changing our model from the original offline model, which is these experiences where professionals teach their skills and students do a project with professionals, into an online model. So that's actually allowing us to test how this online model would work. And then second of all, we're also looking to build a team that we can work on finding more professionals that can teach their skills. So we want to offer teacher training that trains the professionals into the way that Own Academy wants to teach. So then we'll have a breadth of opportunities where students can select and choose to learn from. And then the next step then would be to really hopefully build a technology platform that is similar to like an Airbnb experiences, except everything is career focused. So that's later on in the timeline. But ideally we could do that right now, but with COVID-19 it's a little bit hard to say when all these things can happen. So we're just going to focus on what we can do now and build that closer. And I would say in the long run, our goal is to create this new education ecosystem around Asia to start and then expands into the world. But ultimately, this becomes a way for students to really engage in activities that they're interested in that really helps them see what the future is like, and for them to even sign up internship opportunities, or apprenticeship opportunities or mentorship opportunities. So it becomes a go-to platform for students when they want to know more about the future.
Actually, each time I talk to you or go to your website and try to study you, I learn something and I apply something, I steal something each time. So the latest thing that I steal from you is I've just launched this career webinar, whereby once a week I invite career professionals to share about what they do.
Amazing.
So I want to pay tribute to you for helping kickstart this idea.
Oh, my honor. I'm so happy to hear that. Great job.
Yeah, I can't wait to learn from your latest development and steal it from there.
Please let's not call it stealing, let's call it sharing, right? Like, and just getting inspired by what other new ideas. I think I'm very inspired by what you're doing with the conference and with everything like that as well. So I'm definitely going to be taking some notes on those and see how I can learn from that.
I look forward to having you here, hopefully by end of November, that when things are all settled in. But let's not plan too far ahead. Keep safe and take very good care of yourself.